The single biblical money habit that can eliminate your debt within 12 months is the practice of first fruits giving, applied directly to your debt payments, transforming your obligation into an act of diligent stewardship. This isn't about giving money to a church. It's about reorienting your financial priorities to tackle debt with the same sacred discipline one would honor a divine command. Think about the gnawing sensation. That persistent whisper of dread when you see a bill. The tightening in your chest as you calculate minimum payments. The feeling of being trapped. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7 tells us, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." This isn't just an observation, it's a spiritual truth. Debt is a form of servitude, a heavy chain that limits your choices, stifles your generosity, and casts a shadow over your dreams. Most people attempt to pay off debt by throwing whatever is left over at it. A strategy that almost never works because there's rarely anything left over. But what if there was a way to break free, not just with financial savvy, but with a deeply rooted biblical principle? We see this principle first emerge not under Mosaic law, but in the story of Abraham. After rescuing Lot, Abraham encounters Melchizedek, priest of God Most High. What does Abraham do? He gives Melchizedek 1/10 of everything. Genesis chapter 14 verse 20. This was long before the tithe was commanded by Moses. It was an act of worship, a recognition that all provision ultimately came from God, and therefore, the first and best belonged to Him. It was a declaration of trust. Now, imagine taking that same principle, this idea of giving the first and best, and applying it to your most burdensome financial obligation, your debt. This isn't tithing to your debt in a literal sense. Rather, it's adopting the asterisk mindset of first fruits. Before you pay for entertainment, before you allocate to discretionary spending, before you even consider many regular expenses, you set aside the asterisk first portion of your income specifically to attack your debt. This turns a grudging payment into a powerful, intentional act of liberation. It transforms your debt from a master into a project you are diligently dismantling. Consider Joseph in Egypt. He wasn't just a dreamer, he was a strategic financial steward. God gave Pharaoh a dream, and Joseph interpreted it as 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. His counsel? During the abundant years, store up 1/5 of the harvest. Genesis chapter 41. Joseph didn't wait for the lean years to begin saving, he acted proactively during the good times. This wasn't about personal enrichment for Joseph, but about wise resource management for an entire nation. The Joseph principle in debt elimination means you proactively allocate a significant portion of your income, much like Joseph's 1/5, to build your freedom reserve by dismantling debt before the famine of minimum payments can consume your future. King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, offered abundant counsel on finances in the book of Proverbs. He constantly emphasized diligence, planning, and avoiding the pitfalls of debt and foolish guarantees. Proverbs chapter 21 verse 5 states, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to advantage, but everyone who is hasty comes surely to poverty." Solomon understood that true wealth, and true freedom from want, stemmed from disciplined, intentional choices, not from chance or impulsive spending. The first fruits approach to debt aligns perfectly with this wisdom. It's not a hasty decision, it's a diligent plan executed with precision. So, how does this work practically? Here's the tangible step. From your very next paycheck, designate a debt first fruits fund. This isn't an amount you hope to have left over. It's a non-negotiable percentage or a fixed sum that you immediately direct towards your highest interest debt, or whatever debt repayment strategy you've chosen. Make it automated if possible. Treat this contribution with the same reverence you would any other sacred offering. Perhaps it's 10% of your net income, or maybe you challenge yourself with 20%. The key is that it comes first. It requires sacrifice, yes, but that sacrifice is the fuel for your freedom. This practice isn't merely a financial maneuver, it's a profound mindset shift. You are no longer viewing your debt payment as a burden grudgingly paid, but as a deliberate step towards God's design for your financial freedom. You are actively choosing stewardship over servitude. This discipline recalibrates your entire relationship with money. You start to see every dollar that passes through your hands not as an entitlement to be spent, but as a resource to be wisely managed for maximum impact, particularly for gaining liberty from your creditors. You might be thinking, but what if I can barely make ends meet now? How can I possibly set aside a first fruits portion for debt? This is where the scarcity mindset tries to take hold. It whispers that giving up any money now will only make things tighter. Yet, countless individuals, when they faithfully apply this principle, discover something remarkable. The discipline often makes their remaining money work harder. They become more creative, more discerning with their spending. It's almost as if the act of prioritizing debt with such intention unlocks a new level of resourcefulness and focus. There's an unseen hand at work when we align our financial habits with biblical principles. While not a guarantee of instant riches, there is a consistent pattern of provision and blessing for those who practice diligence and faithful stewardship. Abraham found favor. Joseph rose to power and saved a nation. This isn't name it and claim it theology. It's the consistent observable pattern of God-honoring intentional obedience and diligent work. When you diligently attack your debt with a first-fruits mentality, you position yourself for accelerated progress and often, unexpected assistance. How does this translate to eliminating debt in 12 months? The power is in the consistent, accelerated attack on the principle. Imagine if instead of just making minimum payments, you consistently added an extra 10 to 20% of your income directly to your debt principal, every single month. The psychological momentum is immense, but the mathematical impact is even greater. Interest accrues on the principal. By aggressively reducing the principal, you drastically cut down the amount of interest you pay over the life of the loan. This debt first fruits approach turns a multi-year repayment plan into a remarkably swift journey to freedom, often surprising people with how quickly their balances diminish. The ultimate goal isn't just to be debt-free, it's to be financially free to live out God's purpose for your life. When the chains of debt are broken, a new landscape of possibilities emerges. You are free to give more generously, to save for future opportunities, to invest in kingdom work, to serve without the crushing weight of financial obligation. This habit of first fruits debt payment is not just a temporary fix. It's a foundational step towards a life of true biblical abundance, where you are a steward, not a servant. Breaking free from debt in a year is an ambitious goal, but it is entirely attainable when you approach your finances with the disciplined, intentional, and faith-filled mindset of first fruits stewardship. It calls for sacrifice, yes, but the freedom it purchases is immeasurable. Begin today. Choose one debt. Designate your first fruits. And watch as God's principles transform your financial reality from burden to blessing. One intentional payment at a time.